Part 27J, the lesser of all evils on the flat earth. So when harvest time comes, everybody will get ready, and you should be ready well before Thanksgiving of the year that it's going to happen. Most important thing, find your rock. You have to be on solid ground, or anything I discuss after this is pointless. Okay, you have to be on solid ground, or it's going to be really short for you. And then you're going to need that rope. Make sure you have that rope. And then this is how Hell Week is going to go. First thing you get is the pressure release. And all this stuff happens on the first day, and it's going to be quick. The EM changeover, so you'll be lifted up. That's going to be really quick. And then after that, it's going to be from the pressure and winds and a suction, which will create a vortex that will be lifting everything up. So keep yourself tied down with the rope through the duration of the winds. Not sure how many days that's going to be, but you'll want to be tied down all the way through that. Then the earthquake comes, and this is no normal earthquake. This is a world shaker. And it will split, and it'll create crevices and all that stuff because it's expanding, which I'll get into the next part. You'll have landslides, lots of them, lots of rock slides, and mudslides. So in your exit plan, know where fault lines, not how they say they are, but just fault lines where earthquakes usually happen. That's going to be where the majority of the shaking is going to happen everywhere. But those are the really high danger areas. So know your local areas where earthquakes happen. And then you're going to get into the volcanoes. So know where the volcanoes are. And you're going to have explosions, lahars, you're going to have ash clouds, you're going to have lava that's going to be coming out from certain types of volcanoes. So you're going to have to know if that stuff is by you. So know where volcanoes are. For instance, I used to live in the Pacific Northwest. Volcanoes everywhere up there. So you have to take volcanoes into account also. So while this is going on, you're going to have the ice dome above that's going to crack and break and fall. The ice is going to affect south of the equator to about the 45th degree parallel south. All right, so South America, south part of Africa, Indonesia, and Australia, it's going to be tough for you guys. That's your biggest hurdle. And everywhere by large bodies of water, you're going to have tsunami dangers. Here's a map of low-lying areas around coastal lines that would be inundated with large tsunamis. These tsunamis are going to be massive. I don't know the height, but just plan on if you're not, a couple thousand feet above sea level, you're going to get hit with these things and all the debris that comes with it. So you're not going to want to be in any of these low-lying areas by the sea or other large lakes. All right, and then comes the plasma, and this is all in the first couple hours of the first day. All right, the plasma is going to change over. It's going to start igniting. And this is one thing I have not discussed yet, but I'm using a old map, but just you can envision it on a flat Earth map. The north gets hit the hardest with the plasma because the plasma is centered off of the north. The south, you're going to get some discharge from the plasma arcing, but it's going to be a lot less and it's going to be a lot more spread out. So the closer you get to the north, the more intense the plasma is going to be, and it'll dissipate as it goes away from the north along the flat plane centered from the north. With the plasma comes the fires. All right, this is going to ignite everything. Cities, forests, everything. Anything that's combustible is going to go up in flames. Okay, so I went through this pretty thoroughly in the video on conflagration. But here is, I'm showing you all the heavily wooded jungles, forests, and all that stuff from the 45th degree north parallel south. Okay, everything that you see green on this map is going to go up in flames. Okay, the south of the equator, like the Amazon, right there in the Central Africa and over in Indonesia area, that will be quelled a little bit by the falling ice, but just plan on all that stuff is going to be burning and burning intensely. And the places that it's going to burn most intensely is from the equator up to the 20th parallel, because then you'll start running into the deserts that they've kept as huge fire breaks around their safe zones. Now, as far as the 33rd degree, you got to remember this is from a Western point of view. All these people that are doing all this stuff is from Western civilization, so they are concerned with North America safe zones and Southern Europe and the Middle East safe zones. They can get to those areas, and plus they don't have to deal with India and China, because India and China, they have their own long-lasting civilization, and nobody wants to get into a fight with them. So that's why it's pretty much stopped at Iran and Afghanistan. All right, but where I'm pointing out the fires, so like in the southeast United States, it's heavily wooded. That is going to be going up in flames. The Midwest will probably be mostly okay from the fires, but you're going to have the flood waters coming down through the Midwest all the way down to the mouth of the Mississippi. Um, Madagascar, South Africa, parts of South Africa. If you want to get over to the Kalahari Desert, that's probably your best bet, but you got to get elevation. Okay. The key thing in all this, if you can find elevation, you increase your survival chances 100-fold. If you're in Australia, I'm not quite, I'm not very familiar with a lot of the topography and mountains in Australia, but you got to find elevation. And again, in the south, you're dealing with falling ice, so you're going to have some kind of cover, solid cover in caves or something like that. And conversely, up north, you have to worry about the waters up north. This is a good reference point to where the waters could go, but just plan, if you're above the 45th parallel north, plan on everything's going to be flooded. So elevation, elevation, elevation. You have to get above. I don't know how high the waters are going to be, but you have to get elevation. And wherever the water doesn't flood, you're still going to have the conflagration fires that you have to deal with all the forests up there. So you have to get above the tree lines if you're above the 45th degree parallel north. If you live, or if you know of any oil fields, natural gas fields, anything that's combustible, that's out there, you want to get away from those areas. They will ignite, and when they do, they're going to explode and go boom. All right, you want to get away from all of those. So if you live in Texas, you may want to think about getting out of Texas for a whole host of reasons, because it's attached to the Great Plains and everything else. But those oil fields, I know they have tapped a lot of those dry, but oil renews itself. So there's no telling how much oil is still left in there. All right. So here's a map to show where all the major oil fields are. If you're in or by any of those, your exit strategy is going to be wanting to get away from those areas. Deserts and elevation are your friend. However, you have a huge hurdle when it comes to deserts. You have water and food problems. Okay, that's why you're going to have to plan this stuff out. Okay, but elevation and high deserts are your best geographical locations to ride this thing out. But you have to find rock formations within that. And as you see here, the reason why the 33rd degree parallel is the safest in reference to the northern hemisphere and the Western civilization is because of the fact that it is the lesser of all evils. There's not, when I first talked about this in part 7 about the 33rd degree parallel, I got comments, people talking about, oh, you know, the vortex this does that, and the plasma does this, and the toroidal field does this, and that's why it's the safest. No, it's the safest because it's the lesser of all evils, because you have the ice south of the equator, you have the waters north of the equator, you have the conflagrations everywhere, and by them manipulating and modifying the weather and keeping large sections of the earth dry, that is why that is, because it's the lesser of all evils. You have a greater chance there. Now, I'm not saying you're going to make it, because you still have to do all the things to make it, but it is the best chance at survival because of a couple natural factors that makes it a little bit easier, and then also because of the weather modification and the terraforming that has been done to keep that as safe as possible. You do all that stuff and you got a good chance to get to the red sky. It's that simple. You know, you make it to the red sky, everything's, you know, really good. I mean, after Hell Week, going to be really tough and everything, but you know, you have a chance to get into the golden age, and once you're in the golden age, guess what everybody's going to be doing? They got to repopulate.